Bullards Bar though, man, that place is, let me tell you right now, that place is, if you've never been there, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have, and some of you have not been there, it is, I ran into Mark Zona and Brent Ayler up there a couple weeks ago when they were filming, and we happened to be up there, and me and Paul Bailey, and we had almost 37 pounds up there. I couldn't wait to talk to Zona. I don't know if you guys watch the show, how enthusiastic that guy is, but all I thought to myself the entire day out there is I can't imagine what his reaction is going to be when he catches one of these 7, 8, 9 pound spotted, 10-pound spotted bass. He freaks out at Smith Lake when he catches 3-pounders. So we got to the ramp and I walked up to him and I asked him how mind blown he was, and I'll bleep out what he said, but he looked at me and he says, "That place is effing scary." He says it's Jurassic Park out there. And if you've never been there, you catch these fish. I've caught hundreds of them over 6, 7 pounds out of there. And every time I open a live well and look at these fish in there, it boggles me. They don't even look real. You know, someone who's never been to that lake and didn't know those were swimming in there and caught one of those things, I don't know what would happen. I think they might die. They realistically have no purpose to go to that bank. Very rarely. A lot of times you get these spotted bass reservoirs, the water gets up, get a lot of rain, water comes flying up, and generally the fish run the bank. Go up, you know, crawfish, all the bait got pushed up by the wind. Not a Bullards, man. Bullards is a different deal. They got those kokanee in there, they eat kokanee, and they eat 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them a week, and they're good. So how I've always attacked this lake out there is I've never caught a fish shallower than about 20 feet in that lake ever. Not saying that you can't. I've done it in the summertime, cranking DD22s, you can catch them in the summertime. But generally the best time to catch giant bags of fish is as soon as that water gets down to about 52 degrees and lower, gets down to about, I don't know, maybe 43 is the coldest, 42 is the coldest I've ever fished in. But what these fish do, they'll live generally on these points. Real long, slow, tapering, ugly, gross, flattish looking, stupid points you would never expect a fish to live on, ever. You got some stumps out there to hold on to, but. And what dictates where they, in the water column, is that generally when you get cloud cover, you get excited. You want to go out and go top water and a spinner bait and a jerk bait, fish are moving and grubbing, and generally that's for largemouth. Largemouth, you go smash them in that kind of weather. Up there, man, it's messed up, because you get that cloud cover, these big ones will just get up and they'll suspend, and they just roam and they grub, and they make it almost impossible to catch. You might run onto a school, Cody Meyer pick up a 10XD and he's catching them, you know, 20 feet of water suspended over 60. You can do that, but you got to find the school willing to eat that bait. When the sun comes up, they just put their bellies at the bottom, and they're easy to catch. Easier to catch. Nothing's easy to catch, but they're easier to locate and target. So when the sun comes up, those fish will get down in the mud, right down their bellies, and you catch them on points. I catch generally most of my fish from anywhere, from when I first started fishing this lake, I was catching them real deep, 60, 70 feet. But I catch them generally now about 20 to 40, which is pretty standard for there. You guys are going to be fishing in February, which is a really good time to fish that lake. Generally, December, January is good, but when the water starts to warm up, they start getting more active. I target points, like I said, the grossest, nastiest looking stuff you can possibly fish, and as slow as you can possibly fish. You know, there's couplers. I bring 3 baits up there every time I go, in this time of year. That's it. You don't need anything else. Nothing. I throw a shaky head. This right here is a nail. This is made by Frenzy, Greg Gutierrez's company here. And what's super cool about this is the way that it sits, man. You can literally balance this on anything you want. But most importantly, is the color of the worm, man. In that lake, they actually have salamanders. I don't know how many of you guys know that, but there's legitimate red salamanders living there. I've seen them. I had a buddy dropped him off at the dock, and he was walking up and come back out on the truck, and he goes, "Dude, I saw a red salamander." I was like, "No, you didn't." I was like, "There's no way." And I was up there a couple weeks later, and sure as shit, I saw him. So, and I was wondering why red worked. This worm here is just a regular 6-inch fat. It's called Martin's Madness. This one's got a little bit of flake in it. I think that some people don't like the flake, some people do. I don't think that it matters. I don't think a fish gets up behind this and says, "Oh, it's got flake and I'm not going to eat it." I don't think that's how it works. Red crawler, Martin's Madness, Aaron's Morning Dawn, which has got a little bit of purple into it. Basically what you do, you can throw a darter head too if you want. If you want to spend $7,000 darter heads a day, you can definitely do that as well. I learned my lesson a long time ago not to do that. You will lose quite a few, but they work as well. But the shaky head's awesome because you can just pitch it out there. And there's 2 ways to fish it. You can throw this, you can pull up on a point, put your boat 12, 15 feet, fire out in 40, bring it uphill. I always personally like to fish my baits uphill, no matter what I'm fishing, particularly swim baits. What happens is you put your boat out deep, which a lot of guys, I see guys do it all the time. I'll come behind a guy and smash him. I'll watch a guy out and he'll be sitting out here in 50, throwing into 10, bringing his bait out. He'll get on his boat and take off. I'll come behind him, put my boat in 10, throw it in 50 and catch him. Let's say the fish is in 40 feet of water. 30 feet of water. You're in 50, you're throwing out there. Once you bring that bait past that fish towards deep water, they'll follow it. They'll get out there and follow it. And then it gets to a point where they're uncomfortable and they turn around and go right back to where they're sitting. If I'm in shallow water and I'm firing out deep and I'm bringing that bait uphill, what happens is that fish gets hungry, gets happy, and gets excited because this bait has nowhere to go other than shallower. And that fish can pin it. And fish are lazy, extremely lazy. But not so much spots. Spots will kill it pretty good. But when they get that big like that, when they get 8 pounds, there's a little amount of work they can do, they want. So that's an important technique, is always bring your baits uphill. But anyway, so I'll pitch this out. I'll cast it sometimes and work it. And I don't work it like an actual shaky head where I'm sitting there shaking, reel my slack up, check it, shake it, reel my slack up. I will pitch this thing out there. I'll put my rod tip all the way down the water, and I will literally put my hand in my pocket, and I will just drag that as slow as you can drag it. I'll reel up my slack, and I'll just drag it. And I'll reel my slack up and I'll drag it. And generally when they eat it, it's not like a boom, like you would think one would eat it. What happens is that bait, literally, it feels like it just goes tick, and you pick it and it just got it. And they're just swimming with it. And you reel down and you hit them and you know immediately. That lake is known for either their 6 inches or 6+ pounds. I don't think I've ever caught a fish that are 2 or 3 pounds, ever. So points are awesome. And then another thing is time of year, which is, there's only 3, I think, major waterfalls, inlets on that lake, but whoever's got boat 1 better go sit on that for about 4 hours, because when they're in that zone, they're there to eat for one reason only. When they get in those points, they're there because that's just where they live. Real easy access for them to turn around, go smash a kokanee, go right back and sit in that point. When they get in those waterfalls, they're there because they know what's coming in there. So they pull up in those waterfalls and they grub. And sometimes it takes a while to get them fired up. You throw in there 50, 60 times, you catch a couple little ones, and all of a sudden you catch them. It's just on. Boom, 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 boom. Me and Paul were up there a couple weeks ago and pull up the first waterfall. Paul catches like a 780. We leave, go to the next waterfall. I throw in there. I catch one like 870. Paul catches like another 7, and we catch one almost 9. And it was all within 30 minutes. And it never got bit again. Then we came back and we caught 2 more. So that lake, it's just a goofy lake. I mean, it can be very humbling too. I don't go up there and whack them every time I go up there, but I mean, you just have to know there's a couple points on that lake that just got them. You know what I mean? If I had GPS, I'd point and tell you, but I can't explain it to you. I can't explain it to you right now. So a shaky head is a bait that you absolutely cannot go up there with. And these are all standard baits. There's not like just special baits that whack them. I mean, there's no secret. I don't have a bait on here that anyone else isn't allowed to get or doesn't have. They're all just standard normal baits. The other one is a Cinco. This is a green pumpkin red flake Cinco. And I put a pretty heavy weight in here. I think it's a 16th ounce nail weight made by Demiki. They have some really cool weights I stick in here. And this is just a Gamakatsu hook here. And what I do in my hooks here, this is something I learned over the years. In fact, I had to fish a tournament of Vince's years ago up at Folsom. Where we were throwing Cincos, and I think it was right after his post spawn, I think, and we just kind of stayed in the Browns Ravine area, and we were throwing Cincos, catching 2-pound smallmouths up the ass all day, catch. And Gamakatsu makes a hook here, basically. I'm sure you guys have all seen it, where it's got the little hook loop thing, so it hooks onto it just loops onto your hook right there. So it just kind of like a little deal, weedless deal. And I would hook fish, and I'd fight them for 5, 6, 7 seconds. They'd come unbuttoned, I'd reel it in, and the guard was still on it. It was just still hooked on it, like it never even penetrated the fish's mouth. So what I've been doing is at the very end, I just cut that little loop. So basically, there's just 2 little things that stick up there, and I hook them just about every time I get bit on it. So that's another thing that I've hooked, that I've got a lot more hookup ratio on as well. But this is just a Cinco, just a regular green pumpkin 5-inch red flake Yamamoto Cinco. And depending on where I made a comment earlier about the sun and the clouds. When these clouds come out, the fish will suspend. So I tend to put a little bit lighter of a weight in there. I don't want to get straight to the bottom. So when the fish are suspended, believe it or not, you'll actually throw this out there into 50. And it's very important, very, very, very crucial. When this thing's sinking, do not have a tight line and let your line come off the reel like this. You want to put as much line, let that line on the water and watch your line float on the water. That way your bait goes straight down. Because what happens is you have, even just a little bit of tension like that, your bait's going to fall like a pendulum, and it's going to come towards the boat, and you're going to lose a lot of bites doing that. So you'll throw it out there, and you get a lot of line out, and you'll see your line on the water, and all of a sudden it will just stop. And you're like, it's not 50 feet. And you pick up, and they're on there. So the suspended fish will have to get on the way down. When the sun's out, like I said, fish go on the bottom. I put a heavier nail weight in there, and same thing with that darter head. I throw this out there, and I will just drag it as slow as you can. When I get to my very end of my drag, I'll kind of shake it a little bit, and I'll let it sit back down the bottom, and I'll drag it. And the bite is the exact same thing on this one. They just kind of tick it one time, the rod loads up, swing, and pray you keep the button. A lot of times these fish don't realize they're hooked till they get to the boat. They come up from that deep, they don't know. It just feels like you got a log for the most part. And they come up to the boat and they realize they're hooked, and then that's when you better loosen your drag and hold on. The other bait I throw up there, this is just a Kai-Tek. This is probably, since these things have come out, man, these things are, Jimmy saw it firsthand this weekend at Shasta. I must have caught, I don't know, 30, 35 fish in the first hour and a half of the morning, him on the back of the boat. I found a spot at the Sacramento warm up at Shasta that, I'm jumping off pace here real quick, but to kind of tell you how these things work. Where the big flat came out, and it just kind of followed in the river channel there. And I went as far as you go up the Sacramento arm to where basically the thermocline is, where the water changes temperatures from about 45 to about 47. And that 2-degree change, what that does, it stacks fish up. What happens is the bait gets up to that far. Once that bait runs in that cold water, they just stop. And the fish know that. So the fish stop right with them, and they just live there. They don't have it. And I was catching fish out in the middle of the pond. You know, I'm sitting in 9, 10 feet in the flat, and I'm thrown into 30 out in the middle of the river. Middle. And people, unless you happen to have avionics ship or know what you're doing, people idle over it all day. They're idling over tons of fish, but never caught anything big. But this is what I was throwing. And this is a bait that, again, worked very, 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 very diligently slow. This is a bait that I could throw in the waterfalls. I actually had, up to a couple years ago, never really caught them on this. When I first started fishing that lake, I would go there to the Huddlestons and A-rigs, and me and Paul went up there 2 or 3 trips, and Paul never caught one on a Huddleston. So if he didn't catch one on the Huddleston, I'm not throwing it. That's kind of how I looked at it. But I was up there a couple weeks ago with Paul, and I picked this up in the waterfall, threw this in there, and these are the ones you sink out to. Sink it out all the way to the bottom. And this is on a 1/4 ounce head, and this is just a swing impact Kai-Tek and an electric shad, 4-inch. And you turn the handle, I mean, as slow as you can turn it, and they get it. They get it good. This Kai-Tek has probably caught more fish for me and made more money for me than any bait in the past couple of years. And you can catch, good about this bait is you can catch it in the spring, you can catch them in the fall, you can catch them in the summer, and you can catch them in the dead of winter. But primarily, it's probably the most effective in the wintertime. You guys want some here? But this is the bait you would throw in the waterfalls at Bullards and just slow roll it back. And then you can also drag this over points as well. But again, the problem is exposed hook. You're going to lose a lot of stuff at that lake. There's just so much wood down there, and it's so frustrating, especially when your hands are freezing and you got to tie these little baits on. It's almost like you want to hire someone to tie baits on for you when you. So you got to trust their knot though. But you guys are going to be getting there in the next couple of weeks. The water's coming up. I was up there with Paul, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, and I went back up there for a guide trip a week later, and the lake had come up almost about 25 feet. And people say, well, what do you do when the lake comes out that much? I said, well, you still fish the point. So let's say that we're fishing the point when the water's down to normal level. I'm fishing the point. I'm doing the same thing, sitting in 20, throwing into 40. Will the water come up 25 feet? What do you do? Okay, well, you fish the same point. You just move up a little bit. Yeah, they're still there. The fish are still there. The fish don't go anywhere. The fish stay on those points. You got to think. I made a comment earlier about fish being lazy. It's not humans. There's so many variables you can compare humans with fish, and it's funny sometimes, but it's the truth. Like it's an easy way to compare it because you can relate because you're human, so you know what you do when you get cold. You don't want to do anything. You just want to sit there. You want people to bring you things. You know, on the couch, the blanket, baby, grab me a beer, if you drink, or some food or whatever. You don't want to get up and do it. Fish the same way. They get cold, the littlest amount of work they can do to grub, they will do. But yeah, the water's coming up a lot, and if I had never been there, I would want to go run the bank with a spinner bait or a jerk bait or something to go. But I've done it. And I've had very limited success doing it up there. And I'm a power fisherman. I like to pick my rod up. I like to go down the bank. I like to make 100 casts while you make 10 casts of the Cinco. I can fire whatever bait I want out there, crankbait, square bill. I can fire that out, 100 casts by the time you get 5 casts in the Cinco. So it doesn't work up there. Summertime you can catch them. You go up there anywhere from June to September. You can catch them on a crankbait. You can catch them on a hula grub too in this time of year. You catch them on a jig. Heavy line, 15, 17 pound line. They're not line shy up there. Some guys throw 6 or 4 pound tests. I think that's ridiculous. That's just my opinion. 4 pound tests, you're at so many more disadvantages than you are advantages. That's the way I look at it, especially with all the wood in there. Well, you get more bites. You get more. It's debatable. You know, it's debatable. Cold weather, real crystal clear water, maybe. The water's real. It's weird up there. I don't know if you guys been there, but it's not. It can be clean, but it's got this green, kind of weird. It's just a weird lake, dude. It's all I can explain to you. It's just weird. It's just weird. It doesn't fish like any other lake in this world. I think that's why it separates itself from every lake you've ever been to or anyone's ever been to. But I don't think necessarily they're line shy. So I throw these on 8 pound tests. Every one of my spinning reels has braid on it. Every single one of them. Sensitivity is crazy. I was throwing straight fluorocarbon for years. I fished with Greg Gutierrez up at Havasu 4 or 5 years ago, and Greg had all his spooled up with braid, and he told me to try it, and I tried it, and when I got bit, I thought he hit my line. I said, you hit my line? And he goes, no. I go, are you sure? He goes, no. It's unbelievable. It's to the point where it doesn't even feel real. That's how, but I'm used to it now. I got separate rods and reels rigged up with just fluorocarbon for my dad when I take him fishing because he messes my shit up, so I take him out. I let him use the old stuff, and I picked one of his rods up and made a cast, and I got bit, and I swear I set the hook, and it felt like my line stretched from here to the door. It was, I didn't even know if I had the fish on there. This, you know immediately when you get bit, and the hookup ratios are much better. So I throw it all on iRod. I'm not here to promote anything, but I'm just saying, you guys should check these rods out. They are fantastic. They're extremely light. I think they're arguably one of the lightest rods on the market. And Matt's actually got a new series coming out. I think it's called the Argon series. I think he's actually changed it. I think someone else had already used that. Someone else had used it. So he was taking applications on what he wanted to name the rods. I told him to name them legit, but he wanted nothing to do with that. So, generally speaking, you pull up to a point and they're there, they'll eat. It's not like a spot where you have to, beat it, go buy it for. If you're marking fish, a bunch of fish. In fact, I was up there last 2 weeks ago, and I'm very stubborn. If I can't catch them how I want to catch them, I'm over it. I want to catch them on this. I want to catch them on this. And we're marking fish, and we're dragging Cincos over it, darter heads, and we're like, dude, there are so many fish down there. You can see them, big ones. And I was like, dude, I'm gonna put on a drop shot. I'm doing it. Tied a drop shot on. I waited till I saw one. I dropped down there, and I caught a 7 pounder. And it was just like that. And I looked at, who was I with? I was on a guide trip. And I looked at the guy and I said, tie a drop shot on. So he tied a drop shot on, and we went over that point 2 more times and caught 2 more big ones. So it's little changes like that. Like I said, I'm stubborn. Not everyone is. But drop shot's also a bait you can catch them on. And the worm is the same color. Aaron's Magic, Aaron's Madness, Red Crawler, or Morning Dawn. There's really, I'm telling you right now, there's no reason to throw anything else but those colors. It works, and it generally works every time. So I don't tend to go up too much up the river. I have yet to go up and try to find the thermocline. I know that's been working at Orville and Shasta. That's what I kind of ran both patterns. This past couple weeks I've been fishing the derbies. Usually, like I said, you find that thermocline, fish will stack up. But I just don't think, in my opinion, from my knowledge on that lake, that they would run that far up just to go sit and wait for little fish. They know where those big schools of kokanee swim, so they live out there. They got no reason to go any shallower or any deeper. They get 30, 40 feet and they post all year. So main body stuff, like I said, man, if you're driving, and the guy I was on a guide trip with was like, I kept pulling over these points. He goes, dude, I would never fish these ever. And I go, oh, that's probably why you're not catching 35, 36 pounds. And he goes, dude, if I was here, I would fish that. And he points over to the steepest, biggest, boulder-looking, snaggiest looking stuff, which spots do live on, but not this lake. So if you're driving down the pond and you look over and you see something that just looks like, fish it. It's God honest truth. And people don't believe me until we go up and we catch one on it. And then they go, okay, he wasn't lying. So that's my knowledge on Bullards, man, and that's the God honest truth. I'll take any questions I'm willing to answer.